Hi, everyone. Welcome to Your Money Map, sponsored by the Alliance for Lifetime Income. I am your host, Jean Chatzky. I was thinking as the theme music for our show played that to me, one of the reasons I like it is that it's always sounded like what I might imagine James Taylor would call a traveling song. It's just a little rollicking, it's rolling. You can imagine it in the background as you drive your car along Highway 1 or Highway 57 or wherever you happen to be going. And it's appropriate today because travel is what we're going to be talking about. When we ask retirees what they want to do with their life, with their time, once they're done putting in the hours at their day job, travel is at the tip top of the list. And I can't think of anyone better to talk it through with me today than Samantha Brown. Sam is the host and the executive producer of Places to Love on PBS. She's an award-winning travel journalist and influencer. You've seen her on the Travel Channel as well as on PBS for many years. She and I had the opportunity to work together for a long time at AARP, which was a complete and total pleasure. And over the past 20 years, she has visited over 250 cities in 62 countries and 40 of the United States, creating over 160 hours of programming, which she does with her husband, Kevin. Sam, it's a pleasure to see you as always. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
It is such a pleasure being with you, Jean. I remember our days as being ambassadors for AARP, and I'd see each other at the same conventions, and it's nice to finally run into you now. It's been a while.
How's your pandemic been, and how has it been for your travel business in particular?
Well, like most businesses, we took quite a hit in the beginning of March. We had a full roster, 13 episodes on the dock, scheduled, ready to go. And in 2 weeks' time, we clearly realized that that was not going to happen. But we were able to begin travel again in October this time last year, when we saw numbers coming down and we saw production and how they were doing it. Because you have two industries getting hit. You have travel getting hit and you have television production being hit. But then there was all these protocols that you could do that were starting to come out of how we would maintain our safety. So we adopted, we pivoted our show in terms of incorporating those safety measures, and we were able to shoot a few episodes last year, and then we did 8 episodes in 2021. So as soon as we knew it was safe and everyone I became and my team became vaccinated, we knew we could really jump in with both legs and arms and start traveling again.
And this season of Places to Love is going to be a little bit different in that I know you're focused on the United States, which is what many people have done as we've adapted our travel to the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. We do 13 episodes a year. 7 will have always been domestic, and then 6 are usually 5, and then we'll do a compilation show are foreign destinations. So we always love doing the United States. And let me tell you, it was wonderful staying closer to home. I really felt the benefits of being closer, of things not being so stressed with, foreign travel, international travel. And so even though it's different in terms of where we went, we just stayed in one country. I feel like it remained the same, and even better that the experiences were just as powerful. The trips were just as fulfilling, and yet we didn't have to go far to have them.
One of the things that viewers of this show know is that it's interactive. We love to take your questions. It seems particularly appropriate that we have people tuning in from around the world. Vincenzo's in Italy. Abdul Rahman is in Saudi Arabia. Rachel, I believe, is in the United States. If you have travel questions and you'd like to tee them up for Sam, she would be happy to take them. But I'm going to start off. What do you think it is about travel that puts it on the top of the list for so many retirees?
Well, one, I think, travel is one of the few things we have in our lives that really mark a fresh start. It's a new beginning. And we are all on this journey to understand who we are as people, especially at this time. Like, what did we just go through in life? Maybe what did we just go through in the pandemic? Or maybe the kids are grown. Okay, where am I now in life? And nothing gives us that opportunity to really know ourselves, how we fit into the community, how we fit into the world more than travel. So I feel like it's just that newness and that opportunity to learn from others and to learn about ourselves in the process. That is just makes travel not just an experience to have, but one that has meaning and impact.
Have the travel dreams or travel aspirations of people who are in retirement or even getting close to retirement changed in the past couple of years? I know we talk so often about the bucket list, and maybe people have one, but it just hasn't seemed possible to check off those items, at least during the past year or so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to, if we could just take the pandemic out of it for a bit, and I know it's hard to do. I don't think it's changed people's dreams of travel. Maybe it's even made them want to travel even more, understanding that for a year and a half, or maybe less than, but for a good amount of time, we all experienced the absolute unfathomable, which we were shut off from
Mm-hmm.
travel. I think being, I remember the idea that I couldn't go see my mother in Maine was like, oh my, and forget about going to Canada or to France. I can't even go to the state of Maine. So that I think psychologically really made us think, well, I need to start planning these trips that I want to do, because clearly there is maybe a time stamp sometimes on them, or these uncontrollable factors, so that when I do have more certainty, when I do have more control, I want to make sure that I'm implementing travel. So I feel like it really hasn't changed the travel dream. It's made people more aware of how precious and how important our travels are.
So maybe it hasn't changed the dream, but it's definitely changed the reality of
Hmm.
how we're able to travel, how far we're able to go, where we feel comfortable staying, whether we feel comfortable in a plane or whether we'd rather road trip it in our own car. The Alliance for Lifetime Income is sponsoring the Rolling Stones tour, as I know that you know, and is sponsoring a giveaway for an Airstream trailer, one of those cool Airstreams. And I'm describing it with my hands as if it's only this big, but the line of people to put their name in to be eligible for this trailer has just been off the hook. So I think the reality seems to be at least a little bit different. Have you seen that as well?
Well, I think people, and you hit the nail on the head when you started listing all these things of, am I going to be okay? What's my comfort level when I get on a plane? What's my comfort level when I go into a restaurant? There's lots of people. What has changed, and what I try to bring people's attention to, and what has to happen, is that the world has changed. We've changed, and travel, planning travel and preparing for it has changed as well. So a really good thing to do before you even start thinking about where you want to go is have a real good heart to heart with yourself, with the people you're traveling with, understanding that basically you're reassessing, okay, what is it I like? I can't tell you how many times, Jean, as I've traveled throughout this year, that I kind of had in my mind, oh yeah, I'm fine, and then I've walked into a situation, I'm like, I didn't know it was going to be like this, because we're just so used to walking into restaurants. We're so used to getting on a plane, and once you're there, it becomes the reality, and we just have the dream. So I think that reassessment is really important, and I know that people who are traveling right now have done that. That is something that they're doing. They're kind of going, maybe I don't want to go to a busy metropolis right now. Maybe I will see what that road trip is like. So that has changed. People have stayed closer because they've had to. They've adjusted. But I think the biggest change in all of us is that we had a great time doing it. We realized that in travel, we actually didn't have to go 10,000 miles to have an experience that we loved. And we found out that even in our own communities, there were hiking trails that we never knew about. There's a lake an hour and a half away. I've never been there. Oh, our neighbor actually makes pottery, and that's how she's made this, has made a living, and I can support her by buying some of that pottery. We've realized through all of this that we are all connected, that it is about supporting your own local communities, and that supporting your local community was a part of our own survival, right? So we supported the restaurants. Maybe we couldn't walk into them, but we ordered. We didn't care that there was a long line for takeout or that we might not be able to get our pizza within 20 minutes. We didn't care. We helped. We knew it was a part of us. And I feel like what's happening is people are taking that knowledge with us, and now we're applying it to wherever we're traveling to, understanding that no matter where you go, no matter how far or how foreign, it is someone else's local. So I think the change, and this is what I've been getting back from talking to people and reading articles, is that there's a greater awareness of our financial power as a traveler, who we could spend our money with to keep it in the community, and how we can help with our travels, as opposed to being just consumers. And I've always been an advocate of that. As the traveler is not just a consumer, you can become a part of that community and help that community. So there's a greater awareness of our power as having money as travelers, and who and where we spend it with.
One of the things that you talk about are what you call side B cities. What's a side B city, and why should we, as we start to spread our wings again and go on some trips, why should we be looking for them?
Well, it's a reference to records. There was always in 45s, there was always the A side and the B side. And I feel like I'm talking to my audience right now because we know this, right? People understand records, but they didn't know the 45s. So like for me, my first 45 was Captain and Tennille's Love Will Keep Us Together. And the B side of that was Muskrat Love.
Yes, it was. I had that.
And I loved Muskrat Love. I loved Little Susie and Little Sam. So one thing I love to do as a traveler is to really expose the muskrat loves of destinations, the B-sides. B-side cities are smaller. They have less restaurants, fewer museums. Maybe they don't have the 20 that the Smithsonian has just in Washington, D.C. alone, just the Smithsonian, but they have enough, and they're rich experiences. And you're not spending a lot of money because B-side cities are lower in price. You're not with hundreds of thousands of people because they're not the places that everyone flocks to. You just have a better time. And I think the idea of just really slowing down our time and really enjoying it more and savoring that time becomes really important. And the B-side city just fits the bill. So I'm a big, they're not just here in the United States. Like in the United States, we've done Asheville, North Carolina, Louisville, Kentucky. I've done Huntsville, Alabama. But if you go to Europe, instead of going to Rome, go to Bologna. Instead of going to Paris, go to Lyon. These are smaller cities that still give you that punch of culturalism that we all want. But it's just the level of stress is way low, and you can just feel like you're a local as well.
You're definitely resonating with our listeners here. Bill wrote, "Nice thinking from out of many different circles to realize that connection, despite of how Wi-Fi and transactions work." And Rachel is asking for more examples of B-side cities, maybe right here in the United States. I'm headed to Detroit in a couple of weeks. It will be my first time on a plane in about a year and a half. Is that a B-side city, or is that too major?
I would consider it a B-side city, yeah. And B-sides don't have to be its size. Like Houston, Texas, I've always felt was a great B-side city. It's one of the top eating destinations in the United States. It's the most diverse city in the United States. There's no one majority. It has phenomenal museums, and yet I would even consider Austin, Texas, more of the A-side city that everyone goes to. But not everyone goes to Houston, but there's a phenomenal reason. Instead of going to Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Maryland it was one of the 13 colonies. It has that historic history. It has the museums. It has wonderful food and art. And so I'm not saying go there for a week, but like a weekend or a 3-day, 4-day trip, they're fantastic. I'm trying to think of more because it's usually what we do. I think, even New York City, I live in New York City. Everyone's been coming to Brooklyn. Brooklyn's, a fun borough. It's where you can kind of relax a little more. It's not so intense. It's not so overwhelming. Going to Paris is overwhelming. It is a massive city. And it's also these places that we've read about our whole lives. And we have these very romantic notions of. And then when you get there, you're like, oh, it's a real place with real people and lots of them. So yeah, the B-sides are great. Instead of San Francisco, Oakland, California. I'm trying to think what else. And then, there's the whole, Midwest. I just even like St. Louis, I'd love to go to.
Mhm.
It's innumerable. So many great cities in the United States.
I want to go all the places that I see people on HGTV rehabbing homes. So Indianapolis and
Yeah.
Laurel, I think it's Mississippi. It might be Alabama. No, I think it's Mississippi. Rachel is chiming in that she says Providence, Rhode Island has great food and the Rhode Island beaches. Let's talk about affording this. You talked about the money earlier. How do you create a travel budget? And when we are thinking we'd like to be able to take these trips for the rest of our lives, what kind of money should we be looking to spend on a year in, year out basis?
Well, I mean, that varies greatly, but I can give you my advice on where I think you should travel in a general sense. And I actually give the same advice to people in their 20s as I do people in early retirement, planning for retirement or going into retirement. Go the farthest you can, because now you have the time and you have the energy. For 20-year-olds, life is going to come at them really fast. All of a sudden that rent goes up, or maybe they want to buy the house. Maybe they have children. Like all of a sudden it's going to be really obvious when you can't travel. And then for the retiree, maybe you've been planning, you've been, saving, so you have the money, but then there's the physicality of travel, and it is physical. It is hard. So while you have your health, while you have that chunk of money, plan, I think, your bigger trips first. What is that bucket list trip? Is it going to China to see the Great Wall and the Forbidden Palace? Is it spending, the entire summer in Europe, going from one country to the next, really staying in little hotels or maybe renting homes? And that's physical, because Europe just doesn't have the American Disabilities Act like the United States
Right.
does. It's just physically very hard, I feel, to be in Europe. So plan for those big, and those big trips are the most expensive trips. So that's just that thinking that I have there. And then there's the idea of, well, you could also travel and find out where it's just really inexpensive to live. And so if Europe is a place that you'd like to go to, what are the least expensive countries, not just to visit, but to live, because that gives you a really good sense of where to go. So in Europe, it's Spain, Portugal. Portugal's the number one destination for really understanding or enjoying Europe, whether it's a great city like Lisbon or even the beaches and islands. So you've got that. Budapest, Hungary. Hungary is a phenomenal destination. It gives you that feel of Vienna and Paris, and you still have more of the East and the West. These are less expensive cities and places to visit. And then just, it's fun. It's kind of fun just to do an online search of, where are, American expats retiring to, because that's a really good, gives you a good gauge of places that are great to visit because they're less expensive to live there. But also it's maybe kind of fun to well, what if we did live here? What if we did? I remember in my earlier travel days, Panama was becoming the American expat country because of lower drug prescription rates and just a quality of life. They're right there on the beach. It felt like Miami, but they had a third of the costs. And so it's that kind, and they were changing the destination to making it even more friendly for travelers. So it's interesting the symbiotic relationship between the two. So that's where I would look in terms of affordability. If you still want to go far, look at where people are retiring to and what the cost of living. That's going to give you a really good idea of what you can afford. And then from there, I think it's pretty easy to plan trips in the United States. That's an easier, I guess, stress level, money level, everything.
I am wondering if you are hearing more about people with remote work being accessible, taking their employers up on the ability to do a little bit of digital nomad type work, to eat, pray, love their life for a year and spend 3 months here and 3 months there and 3 months there. I was reading just this morning that a bank, Synchrony Bank, has announced that they're going to offer year-long sabbaticals at a reduced rate of pay, but it made me think about, well, is that possible to just pick up and go someplace and live in several different countries for a year?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of places where we're seeing a lot of destinations where they would experience a lull, say now, because leisure tourism is over, offer, was it I saw that a lot of movement in the Caribbean countries and islands where they would offer visas for an entire chunk of time. For just come here, stay in our hotels. We'll offer you the visa. We'll give you this and just work. And now you're supporting our local economy. And so there's this a massive shift happening that we're just beginning to understand, because as work comes back, people are realizing, oh, what worked in the past doesn't need to still be here. We don't need to have this many people back in the office. I've heard that I believe Amazon basically just made the announcement that for a great deal of their workers, they're going to allow them to work remotely, and that's going to be huge. It's going to change the dynamic of the United States. And in October, 22% of people traveling in October extended their vacation to 10 days because they could travel and work remotely. That's massive.
That's unheard of in the United States, where we don't take all of the vacation days that we're given in any given year.
Yes, well, and for me, that's really exciting, because that's ridiculous that we have to convince Americans. They leave on average 2.5 days of their paid vacation time on the table, and that has repercussions down the line, right? For small businesses, for restaurants, and so if we're traveling more and we can work from home, we can work a little and stay longer. That just for right now feels like a win-win for everybody.
I mentioned at the top of the show that we know that the number one thing people want to do in retirement is travel. AARP has actually done some research reporting that 99% of baby boomers tell us that they want to travel when they are retired. But we also know that the biggest fear for people entering retirement is that they won't have enough money to last them through their retirement. It's one of the reasons that we do the show and that the Alliance exists, because making sure that there's some sort of a guaranteed income in place, often in the form of annuity to supplement Social Security, is one way to ensure that you can continue to do that year in and year out. But I'm also wondering, and I say this as I have a friend who right now is on a cruise, and she's cruising for free because she teaches art classes on that cruise. I'm wondering if there are ways to combine your desire to travel with the ability to make a little bit of money along the way.
Boy, I'm not sure about, I'm sure there are. I just feel like it's so variable that it just depends on what country you're going to. Are we allowed to go to the country? There's certainly ways that you can bring massive costs of travel down. So I have a good family friends. They've been retired for 10 years, and all they want to do is travel. And they had the RV for 10, but they were done with that. They were done moving around. And now what they've done, and this was before the pandemic, is that they house sit. And you can be a house sitter anywhere in the world. And I think it's just housesitters.com. Forgive me for not knowing, but it's house sitting. And you're taking care of someone's house, and usually they're pets. That's the main reason why someone wants you to come into their house, because they've got pets. And so not only do you get to take care of a house, but you get to take care of their adorable pets too. And so they've gone all over England, Scotland, Spain. And that's how they were able to afford Europe, which is prohibitively expensive for a lot of people, especially England. So that's a way to do it. Of course, we've heard you have the Airstream. People were so excited about that, because that has become not just a way to maybe travel for a weekend, but a whole different life. I mean, people have really reassessed what their lives are looking like now going forward. And so you have the retirees, but you also have a younger generation wanting to RV because they don't need to work in the same place and they don't want to settle down just yet. They want to travel and kind of figure out where they land through their travels. And I don't see any difference again in the retiree. Why can't you travel all around and then settle down after a year, take that gap year? So there are ways flights and lodging are probably your most expensive, especially lodging, if you're going to be gone for a certain amount of time. So house sitting and house swapping have become very, very popular with bringing the cost of that down.
Rachel's also saying that traveling off peak and staying at hotels and Airbnbs off the beaten track have been cost savers for her. For me, over the years, flying into not the main airport, but maybe an airport an hour away has often provided a significant cost savings. We've got people joining us from Morocco, again from Saudi Arabia. The international pet sitting site is trustedhousesitters.com. Thank you so much for that. Planning travel to me, maybe it's because of the number of sites and the amount of information that is Googleable, that is just available at your fingertips. To me, it's gotten more complicated rather than less. And I'm wondering about the role of the travel agent in the process. Do you ever use one? You probably don't need one, but do you recommend that other people do?
Yeah, I absolutely recommend people use them, especially now. And just for our show's purposes, a travel agent wouldn't work. We need producers that are hired to book the travel to be with us, and so it really doesn't work into a traditional travel advisor model. But we have someone dedicated to us for that travel, is my point. And that's basically what you get with a travel advisor. You have an advocate, and that's what more and more people are really concerned about in their travels, how things are going to change. We still live in pretty uncertain times, as we know, with the Delta variant. And I think just having a travel advisor and a real person, not just online, an online agency, or when you're booking travel on your computer, they have no idea that you're planning this important trip, right? The computer doesn't know that, you're going to bring your sister-in-law and she's really difficult. And if we don't have a nice room overlooking the ocean with the balcony, she's going to blame it on you. And a computer doesn't know any of this. A person will. And so when you establish a relationship with a travel advisor, they really do become a trusted colleague and friend. That is their role. And if anything goes wrong, they are there to pick up the phone, to be on the phone for 10 hours while you still have a good time. Also, the cancellation policies, the changing COVID rules, borders are closing, borders are opening. How do you possibly, I can't keep a track of this. So yeah, if you're planning, especially if you're planning an important trip, maybe not just a weekend to Louisville, Kentucky, that you can do. Or I'm sorry, people are coming in from Morocco. What am I talking about? But yeah, just to have that person that is going to be on the other phone line or a text away. Oh my gosh, that's huge. I think it's well worth the money. And then I think the next question is always, well, how much do travel advisors cost? Because it really is sort of this nebulous field, but usually they work either on commission, which, okay, they're giving you a cruise at a certain price, and it's, well, why can't I choose the other cruises? But the idea is that they've established a really good relationship with that cruise company, and they're able to get you a whole new level of suite or added on amenities, and you're just going to benefit from that with that commission. Or they charge anywhere from 4 to 10% of the trip, and that's a wide range. I get it, but if you are, again, planning a big trip and it's important, it's really nice to have that travel advisor always knows the better deal, and more maybe added on luxury items for your trip to make it even more special.
While we're talking about extra services that may or may not be worth paying for, and by the way, I hear you on a travel advisor, and I have used one for my big trips as well. What about travel insurance? And if you're buying insurance these days, is there a specific kind that you should be buying because of COVID?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's interesting. Travel insurance, yeah, before the pandemic was really like, no, there's no such thing as a pandemic, and they've all come under line. Yeah, if you're traveling this year, especially 2022, maybe even into 23 and 24, it's a good idea to get insurance. And you do want to make sure that there's some sort of COVID understanding, and there's all different types, and you will pay for that type. Again, it's anywhere from like 5 to 10% of your overall trip. But I've always thought of travel insurance as insuring your investment. And if we're talking to an investment community, that becomes really important. I mean, again, maybe not if you're going on a quick, weekend trip or even a week trip to a place you've always gone to. Maybe you can handle that, no problem. But if you're planning something really special, I think the idea of having insurance to protect that investment is really important.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. My rule of thumb, my money rule on this has always been, if you can easily afford to replace it,
Yeah.
if it's a drop in the bucket, then you don't have to insure it. And that's true of anything. But if you can't, if it's a car, if it's a house, if it's a special trip, then of course you buy coverage, because this is something that you've saved for. This is something that you have absolutely dreamed about.
Mhm.
And Rachel is again chiming in, and she recommends it for cruising. I'm wondering how you feel about cruising right now in general.
I don't think I'd get on a big cruise yet. And certainly if I did, everyone would have to be vaccinated. I would be on one of those, vaccinated only people cruises. There's a lot of people. But river cruising, I love. I was just on one actually this July in France, went to all along the regions of Bordeaux on the Dordogne, and it was phenomenal. And so smaller cruises, yes. Bigger cruises, me, not so much. However, I am not the norm. Cruises are booking like into 2024. They're so popular. So there's a huge pent up demand for cruises. People love the cruise, and they are ready to cruise.
Jennifer was weighing in when you mentioned your sister-in-law or somebody's difficult sister-in-law, and she said, "Wait, what do you mean? I'm not the only one with that kind of sister-in-law." True. I'm wondering though about traveling with family, about traveling with friends. Sometimes we have very different kinds of expectations about the kinds of hotels that we want to stay in, about the kinds of trips that we want to take, about the amount of money that we want to or have to spend. What's the best way to get through these sorts of trips with our friendships and family relationships intact?
Boy, that's a great question. And the first thing to do is to have a good sit down, discussion about what people can afford. And these are tough. These are tough conversations, but they get tougher if you're actually in the destination and you can't afford what your friend does. Now, I'd imagine that knowing your friends and knowing your family, you already have a pretty good idea of where they are at with how much money they like to spend, what they have for money to spend. So maybe it's good if you're already sort of in a very different tax bracket than your friends, whether that's good and bad. Maybe you're higher, maybe you're lower. That you really travel with people who have your same approach to money, or maybe same access to money. Having said that, if you are someone who has a good deal of money you've saved, and you want to take your family on a great vacation, then that's what you should do. And you should say, I want everyone to have the vacation of a lifetime, so I am going to spend on a big house, and it will be on me, and everyone can come. But if you can, and then start to divvying up, maybe we can get groceries, that sort of thing. Or I'm going to spring for all the hotel rooms or all the flights. The rest is up to you. Come. So then you take that out of the mix. So again, if you have that money, it's wonderful, and you want to have a certain type of vacation, then that can really be up to you to help other people along who can't afford it. No one likes to not be the person who can't afford the trip. No one wants to be that family that shows up and can't get their kids $25 hamburgers at a nice resort. So you don't want to put your friends or your family in that position to begin with. So I think it's just a real knowledge of who you want to travel with. And if they have a lower income than you, maybe you can step up and treat people to a really nice trip.
Yeah, and I think it's just another reminder of, if this is something that you see coming down the pike in your future, If this is something that is on your list of things that you want to do in your retirement, then planning to afford them, planning to pay for them, planning to make sure that you've got enough money coming in consistently every single year is a way to ensure, for lack of a better word, that these trips will actually happen. Sam, as we wrap this up here, a couple of questions. First of all, what are your favorite resources for people, particularly retirees who are looking to plan travel?
Oh gosh, well, my resource, Samantha-Brown.com. I have all of my episodes are online, available to stream here in the United States only. Sorry, Morocco. And I also have a list of the itinerary of everything I do. And why I promote me first is we've done a huge vetting of the places that we show. Not only do we show up and shoot them, we also, and shoot them, I mean, with camera, but we also send producers down there beforehand to vet them, to meet people and say, yay or nay. So we do a lot to make sure what you're seeing and what I'm putting on my website has been vetted by me or my people that I work with. Other places, I love newspapers. Whatever your, maybe your local or your national or your city newspaper is. I mean, just for me, the New York Times is a phenomenal travel source. They have 36 hours in a destination, a great resource for great weekend trips. If you're on social media, something that I do is I'll follow, say on Instagram, the Houston Gazette, right? And I'm following the Houston Gazette. And then there's a bar below that shows all of the other Instagram media accounts that are kind of like that. And then I start to see more local, even deeper dives into the art that's happening, the music that's happening, and I follow them too. So I just start to get to know a place through its newspapers. It's because the newspapers are always really reporting on what's happening, boots on the ground. Travel shows like me, it's a little bit more up here. And then, travel guides and books that you see in bookstores are, a year off from actually reporting on that place. So I like to know what's happening now. And that's how I do it through local journalism.
We love it. And we'll be watching. When does the new season of Places to Love launch?
Oh, January 2022.
Thank you so much, Samantha. We will be watching. A big thank you to the Alliance for Lifetime Income for bringing us this program. If you're looking for more information, you can find it at protectedincome.org. Sam, such a pleasure to see you.
Jean, it was such a pleasure to see you as well. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Dicky.